The most important part to any zoo is the animals in the enclosures they call home. Throughout the series, I'll be designing different enclosures for an array of animals, whilst also keeping guest interaction at the forefront of every build. Join me each week as I tackle a new enclosure and idea and try and bring it to life within Planet Zoo. Today I'm going to build a cheetah enclosure, and this will sit in the Africa area in my zoo. Of course, with this being in the Africa area in my zoo, cheetahs are obviously found in Africa, and the only thing we need to worry about is their lamb requirement, which is quite large. But in terms of group sizes, I only have 2 females within this enclosure. Starting off with the build, you'll see that I have loads of ideas from previous enclosures coming into this one, and I do build this one a little bit differently, as I do focus on this front part of the build for quite a bit at the start here. So I knew I wanted a pit, and not with water this time like the lion enclosure, a bit more of a pit like the bear enclosure that I'd done previously. But this wouldn't be accessible to the cheetahs. It's just a way of keeping them from the fence and guests. This also meant I could have a lower fence for guests to see a lot better. Originally, this was going to be my main viewpoint for the enclosure, but there is a bit off to the side there that I thought would do quite nicely for a little window, just for guests to have another point of view to see the animals. As these builds go on, I do find it quite difficult to come up with different fencing ideas and ways to enclose the space. Obviously, you can see I started with some rock work around the edge, and I do later carry this pretty much all the way around the enclosure, but I do have some themed buildings towards the back as well, just to break that up. So here I am just adding this sort of grey textured slab here. This is for the fencing to go on top. I do like this sort of technique and way of building, so I sort of carry on with this all the way along here. There will be a secondary fence, which will be an electric fence, but because I've raised this fence up here, it actually hides the electric fence a lot better. So this is definitely something I want to look into on future builds. Doing things a little different, I decided to add the TV screens in first, I think just to fill in this space and see what I wanted where. And I do also add some theming pieces along the front here. I was trying to toy with different things. I wasn't sure what to go with, but I eventually settled on some certain pieces. Another thing on my mind was what to do with this pit, so I decided to add some theming pieces in this as well. I didn't want to leave it barren, and I was really unsure what to put in there, so I kind of just plonked a few theming pieces. I wasn't really sure. I was going for like a rubble feel, and then that didn't quite happen. This is where I'm trying out the different building pieces, and this is where I decided this spot here would be a good viewpoint for guests to see the cheetahs even more. Here I'm going back to the pit and just trying to find anything that will work. I wanted to add a bit of height. Obviously guests will look down, but the cheetahs won't be able to get down there, so it isn't really a priority for this build. I decided that was enough with that front point of the enclosure. It was time to fill in some spaces around the edge. So here I am adding those windows, and I also make some tweaks to the theming pieces that I already have there. Originally this was just a eatery area, picnic area, but opening it up, it means there's more for guests to see round here other than just popping to the toilet and a couple of benches. An important part with any of these builds is the houses themselves. So I knew I wanted to theme the house. I'm not the best at theming things, it's very basic. So I came across this lovely piece here, and I placed this in here and thought this was a nice little use of the space. And then this kind of encouraged me to go around with the rock work all the way around the edge and just carry that on, and like I say, there is a break from that with the buildings towards the back, just so it wasn't too much for guests to look at. Here I am putting in the cheetah house. I knew I wanted access there from that path for keepers. I made this a very large house, even though it is all off show from guests. They won't be able to see the cheetahs when they're in there. It's just a nice way to make all these enclosures feel different. And this was giving similar vibes to the mountain goat enclosure that I done, with all the rock work actually hiding the house. Now it doesn't hide it completely because you can see some of the house from the path there, but it's nice just to not always have the enclosure house on show. With that side of the build nearing completion, I wanted to work on the back here, and this is the buildings that I saw, and I tried to make them all a little off center so they weren't perfectly straight. And I do fill that in with some rock work just to carry it on, and also explain why that one's a little higher than the others. Here I am just carrying the rock work round to that wall. So something I wanted to try in this build was like a proper trail path. So what I done was is I got the terrain tool and textured the ground first before getting the animal in, which is a first for me. And as you can see, I'm just laying out a little trail here. I wanted to give this a go because I wanted to place the plants and foliage in a more specific space instead of just dotting willy-nilly. Here I'm just making sure I can get the cheetah in by filling in the wall. It is nice having all that rock work because it means it can just hide the wall there, and from here is when I need the null barrier. It saves having to go all the way around with the null barrier every time. With the fencing complete and the cheetah in, I just wanted to add a few more textures here just so the ground level was right. And this is where I go ahead and start filling in the foliage. I do actually put in a little too much to start with, so I do have to scale it back. But it was nice to try this and see how it works, and I definitely want to carry it on into other big builds in the future. That's all the plants in. The last thing to do was to add some enrichment pieces. There's some different ones here, obviously because it's a big cat, and it's nice to just sort of fill in that space with different items. This is a very large house, I do realise, but it's nice to have all that space, and also it means the cheetahs can roam in here as well. Overall, I'm really happy with this build, and it was nice to fill in this space towards the back of the zoo because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, and trialing different things throughout the build like the trail round and then placing plants a bit more sensibly was a nice little thing to do.